How do empaths protect their energy from narcissists? Here is the answer right away. Not by feeling less, but by deciding consciously where their feelings are allowed to go. Psychologists call this emotional boundary setting, and it rests on one simple truth. Empathy without limits isn't a gift. It's an open door. A narcissist doesn't drain you because you feel too much. They drain you because nothing stands between what you feel and what they take. In the next 10 minutes, you'll learn the 5 psychological boundaries that change this, including one counterintuitive technique that Heyoka Empaths use instinctively. And if you stay to the end, we'll talk about the moment when boundaries are no longer enough, and what protection really means then. Let's begin where every drained empath begins, with the question of why narcissists find you in the first place.
It isn't an accident, and it isn't bad luck. Narcissists are drawn to empaths for a precise psychological reason. An empath provides what psychologists call narcissistic supply: attention, validation, and emotional labor, without demanding anything in return. Think about what an empath offers on the first meeting. Deep listening, instant emotional attunement, the reflex to soothe discomfort the moment it appears. To most people, that's kindness. To a narcissist, it's infrastructure. Studies on narcissistic relationship patterns describe an early phase of idealization, often called love bombing, in which the empath's responsiveness is tested and mapped. How quickly do you apologize? How much guilt can you carry? How long will you explain yourself? Every answer becomes a doorway. Here is the reframe that matters. Being targeted says nothing about your weakness and everything about your resources. Nobody tries to siphon an empty tank. Before you can guard your energy, you need to see how it leaves. The drain rarely looks dramatic. It looks like a conversation. The narcissist arrives with a crisis. You absorb it. They create confusion. You spend hours restoring clarity. They withdraw affection. You work to win it back. Psychologists describe this as an intermittent reinforcement loop, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Unpredictable reward keeps you invested far longer than consistent kindness ever would. And empaths carry a second vulnerability: emotional contagion. Research shows that highly empathic people literally mirror the nervous system states of others. The narcissist's anger becomes your tension. Their emptiness becomes your exhaustion. You aren't imagining that you feel worse after every encounter. Measurably, you are carrying feelings that were never yours. Which brings us to the first boundary. The first boundary is invisible. It's drawn inside you in the moment you ask one question: is this feeling mine? Psychologists call this skill emotional differentiation, and for empaths, it is the foundation of every other defense. Try it in real time. You leave a conversation feeling heavy. Pause. Ask, what was I feeling before this interaction? If the heaviness arrived with the other person, it belongs to the other person. You don't have to solve it, carry it, or fix it. Naming does something remarkable in the brain. Studies on affect labeling show that putting feelings into words reduces amygdala activation. The alarm center calms down when experience gets a name. A simple inner sentence, "That is his anger, not my failure," is not positive thinking. It is neurological self-defense. Narcissists harvest energy through speed. The urgent request, the sudden crisis, the guilt-loaded question that demands an answer now. Urgency is not an accident. It is a tool. Speed bypasses your judgment and triggers your helper reflex before your discernment can load. So the second boundary is time. One sentence practiced until it is automatic. Let me think about that and get back to you. Notice what this sentence does. It doesn't refuse. It doesn't accuse. It simply inserts a gap between request and response. And in that gap, your prefrontal cortex catches up with your empathy. A manipulator's request often cannot survive a delay. because reflection is exactly what it was designed to prevent. If someone punishes you for taking time to think, they have just told you what your instant yes was worth to them. And watch what happens inside you during the pause. The guilt spikes, peaks, and then, if you wait just 90 seconds, begins to fade. That fading is the manipulation losing its grip. The narcissist's urgency has a half-life. Your clarity doesn't. The third boundary is the counterintuitive one, and it is where the Heyoka empath comes in. Most empaths defend themselves by absorbing less. The Heyoka does something different. Instead of catching what the narcissist throws, they reflect it, calmly, without anger, like a mirror. The narcissist says, "You're too sensitive." The mirroring response isn't a defense or a counterattack. It's a calm question. And what would be the right amount of sensitivity for you? Suddenly, the projection has nowhere to land. Psychologically, mirroring works because a narcissist's accusations are exports, disowned feelings sent outward. When you refuse the delivery and hand it back with genuine curiosity, the narcissist meets the one thing they organize their whole life to avoid: their own reflection. You don't need to be a Heyoka to use this. You only need to stop catching what was thrown. Every piece of emotional information you share with a narcissist can be weaponized later. Your childhood wound becomes ammunition in the next argument. Your insecurity becomes the pressure point. This is why psychologists who study narcissistic abuse recommend what's often called selective transparency. And, in high-conflict situations, the gray rock method. Become uninteresting. Short answers, neutral tone, no emotional flair to feed on. Understand what this is and what it isn't. With safe people, openness is how intimacy grows. Keep sharing there. Selective transparency is not paranoia and not dishonesty. It is accurate trust. You match your openness to the demonstrated safety of the listener. An empath's story is precious material. You wouldn't hand your diary to someone who quotes it against you. Stop handing them the live version. The fifth boundary is the one empaths resist most: the right to leave, a conversation, a room, a relationship. Empaths stay too long for a psychologically documented reason. They can feel the wounded child behind the narcissist's behavior, and compassion whispers that leaving equals abandoning. So let this be said clearly. Understanding why someone harms you is not a reason to keep letting them. Compassion and contact are separate decisions. You can wish someone healing from a distance at which they can no longer reach your nervous system. Practice the small exits first. I'm ending this conversation now. We can try again tomorrow. Each small exit teaches your nervous system what the narcissist tried to make you forget. The door was never locked. And sometimes the small exits are not enough. When contact reliably costs you sleep, health, or self-trust, the boundary becomes distance itself, reduced contact, or none. That is not cruelty and not failure. In the research on recovery from narcissistic abuse, distance is consistently the point where healing measurably begins. Leaving a person who harms you is not abandoning them. It is refusing to abandon yourself.
Here is the thought that sabotages every technique in this video. But isn't this selfish? Empaths are conditioned, often from childhood, to read self-protection as betrayal of others. Many grew up in homes where their sensitivity had a job, calming a volatile parent, harmonizing a tense household. If your empathy was your role, boundaries can feel like quitting your reason to exist. But look at what actually happens to an empath without boundaries: exhaustion, resentment, and a slow numbness that psychologists call empathy fatigue, the helper system shutting down to survive. An empath without boundaries doesn't become more loving, they become depleted. Boundaries are not the opposite of empathy. They are its maintenance system, the thing that keeps the gift renewable instead of consumable. The most compassionate people you will ever meet are not the ones with no limits, They are the ones whose limits let them keep showing up. Think of the flight safety rule every empath has heard, and few believe: secure your own mask first. It isn't a metaphor about selfishness. It's physics. An unconscious helper helps no one.
So let's return to the question we started with. How do empaths protect their energy from narcissists? Now you know the real answer. Not by hardening, not by feeling less, but through 5 conscious boundaries: naming what is yours, pausing before the yes, mirroring instead of absorbing, guarding your story, and keeping your right to leave. Notice what none of these require: becoming someone else. The goal was never to turn an empath into a fortress. It was to give the open door a doorkeeper. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Unguarded sensitivity was. And the difference between the two is not personality. It is practice. Start with 1 boundary this week. Just 1. The pause is the easiest place to begin. If this video gave you clarity, share it with the empath in your life who apologizes too often. Subscribe for more psychology of empaths, Heyokas, and the people who drain them. And tell us in the comments, which of the 5 boundaries is hardest for you? Your answer might become our next video. Until then, feel deeply and guard the door.